There's a remake of Hellraiser, supposedly, or a reboot coming out to Hulu this month.
Something.
They've been talking about doing a remake to this film since 2006. And I think a reboot might be the right way to go about it, because I don't know if you can touch the original film. Yeah. Welcome to Kyle and Nick on Film, and today we're talking about the original 1987 Clive Barker directed Hellraiser. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can also support the show by joining the Patreon. We just put it up, our episode of Body Double, which is a Patreon exclusive that you can our review, you can watch. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out that webpage for critics' reviews as well as ours. And today we're going to talk about Clive Barker's first time directing, and he hit it out of the park with Hellraiser.
When Larry and Julia Cotton move into his childhood home, they unknowingly cross paths with Larry's brother Frank, a man who died in search of the ultimate pleasure in pain. Now Frank, returned from death, needs Julia's help to restore his body as he evades the mystical Cenobites, beings who police the interdimensional underworld.
So, am I critical? I'm going to talk about a viewpoint that a lot of people don't really discuss when we talk about this movie, but we'll talk about some other things. But I want to tell my overall view. This is a clear classic of Catholic Gothic horror. As the words like suffering, body dismemberment. Not only that, not only the classic sins, but body sins. Mm-hmm. Not for, like the Old Testament kind of sins, but this is like
going back
fleshy.
to that body is a temple kind of ideal too, and having like that your temple is being maimed, your temple is being destroyed.
The other thing, the only reason I bring that up is because Clive Barker uses, I think, an exercise to flesh out that he is gay, but he grew up Catholic, and these are a lot of things that he was trying to release in his writing. Things about, even gay, you're going to go to hell for things that you enjoy doing, and this is all kind of flushed out. And I think that's the narrative. This is clear, classic Catholic horror.
Yeah, and he was at a nightclub. Fun fact: I watched this movie within the confines of Joe Bob's show on Shudder. He has an episode where he broke it down, The Last Drive-In. So I watched it that way this time, which was really fun. And I didn't realize that Clive Barker, of course, he'd spent a lot of time at some of these gay nightclubs. S&M clubs, and he had actually spent some time...
Inspiration for the costuming.
Yeah, and so he had been seeing these people that were at these clubs, and that was kind of giving him this idea that they're enjoying the pain of living and the pleasure of all that kind of stuff. And, and so he kind of that was the nugget that kind of steamrolled it. That wouldn't surprise me if he had kind of gone through it as though, the things I'm enjoying with my life are the things that you're saying I'm going to be condemned with. Even going back to the biblical idea of an eye for an eye. I mean, the lead hell priest says, give us Frank and we'll let you live. He's trading,
Right, yeah. So there's a lot of that. Also the reference of a puzzle box, and that's kind of I always thought it was Pandora's box, but yet another inspiration his dad had his grandfather had some kind of puzzle box or something like that. And also using of puzzles, kind of like the catalyst exploration. This is almost a little bit of your adventure. I like the beginning of the movie. Kind of the inspiration beginning of the movie of you're going to areas like Monaco or Casablanca or Indiana Jones. You're getting these artifacts. It's very cliche though.
There's two movies in the 80s with that kind of scene. One's Hellraiser and the other's Gremlins, and they both go very different in terms of tone. Right. But those are the two I always think of when it's you go to a mysterious land and I'm going to sell you something you maybe shouldn't have.
Yeah. I get to read I did finally able to read the book specifically for this review. Actually, there's a lot of stuff stays in there in the movie from the book.
It's very close. There's little changes that are made that he felt were
Christy goes to house party.
Yeah, well, she's not a family member in the book. She's a family friend.
Yeah.
I think Larry's name is something different, if I remember correctly. Yeah, Rory.
Yeah.
And so there's just these odd things that you wonder why they were changed. I think the idea with the Kirsty is he felt that he could get into the kind of disturbing, incestuous nature of Frank that way.
Yeah.
Taking his brother's wife, taking his brother's daughter would be his next goal, then kind of really giving that gross out factor to it.
Also, the other reason I emphasize this Catholic Gothic horror is because blood is a vessel for the transactions.
Yes.
Right? The inspiration. Well, it's family DNA, and all of a sudden that sprang me back home.
Yeah.
It's almost like a loophole. Which
probably one of the coolest One of the coolest practical effects sequence I think ever put to film, and on a movie with such a shoestring budget, I don't know how they pulled that off.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's a very tight budget. Clive Barker wanted to do it because he didn't like how the other books, how the other stories were being adapted, which is like what
Rawhead and Rawhead Rex were the two that he specifically called out. I don't think there was any others of his work at that point. So.
Right, and though I haven't seen those other two movies, when this came out, it was highly discredited. Critics actually hate it. I think Robert Ebert probably thought it was the most disgusting thing he ever saw in his life.
Yeah. He asked the question, why do people see movies like this?
And the reason is because people live hellish lives. Mm-hmm. But also the component that is explained in the movie, that some people, what they enjoy, others see as painful. Like it says, we're angels to some, demons to others. It's based on your perception.
Yeah.
This is heaven for some people. This is hell for others.
Well, Doug Bradley described it, and he said during his conversations with Clive Barker, the idea of what is hell came up. Who am I as a character? They wanted to really dive into the hell priest himself. Yeah. And he said, hell is basically a prison, and you're the guard. And these are escaped convicts, and now you have to go and get them and bring them back. You know, the box is the key that gets you in and out of the cell. And so I like the idea of that, where it's more transactional, it's more rules-based, if you will. Because that seems like it seems like the Hell Priest would probably go with that.
Right. Yeah. So Clive, there's a lot of shots where I would say it's like this, like how we are. Mm-hmm. Very much compact. Yeah. I mean, even the house is compact. Is that the hallway? I mean,
and it is a real house. So he had to get really creative with shooting. There was no movable walls or anything. They shot in an actual house and no sets for that. So
a lot of the action is here, but when you see the Cenobites and stuff, that's when you see a lot more space.
Yeah.
And the colors are really reserved. I mean, even when Christie's walking, it looks like communist Russia.
Yeah, it did kind of, like...
it's very bland.
I thought it was Berlin before the wall fell.
Right, so it's very bland, uninspirational, very drab environment. But when the colors is where the bad things are happening.
Yeah, and I think part of that was that because Clive Barker, this being his first directorial time, the legendary story of him going to the library to find out how to be a director.
Going on set and say, who's in charge?
Yeah, and so he went to the library to get books on directing. He found 2 in the catalog, and they were both checked out. So he didn't have any idea of what to do. Thankfully, he worked alongside some people who had done quite a lot of other work. Right. And he basically trusted his team to be able to accomplish his vision, which is what you, as a director, should be able to do. You just hope that eventually you learn some of the things that you don't know going in. Yeah. But it is funny to me that he pulled off such a tremendous classic feat. He had no idea what he was doing.
But the story works. Mm-hmm. If you got a good story, you can actually edit it very well. And that's the core of it. You have a really good story. You have a very shocking story. This was shocking. Nowadays, it's still, it would probably now kind of seem bland, but nowadays, it is still.
I saw this when I was probably 16, which would have been about 06. I saw this for the first time, and it shocked me. And I was a horror movie kid. I had seen a lot of stuff I wasn't supposed to see, and this was just one that, the only reason I waited so long is because I just couldn't find a DVD of it. They didn't have it for rental at my store, so I had to go and hunt down and purchase it with my own hard-earned cash. Yeah. It was definitely shocking back then. I still feel like it is, and I think it's almost a roadmap where future sequels made the mistake of picking the wrong elements to take from that first movie, because the idea that, I think the Hell Priest and the other Cenobites maybe have like 10, 15 minutes of screen time in the whole narrative.
Right, yeah.
And the idea of like, well, that's good, people don't need as much of them. It's like, no, they need the good story around it. I maintain if you remove the Cenobites and the puzzle box from this movie, it still works as a nice little horror movie.
Right, because you got a love triangle.
Yeah, the story and structure works, but the Cenobites are able to add the style to it that sets it apart from other films. It's a family drama, a really messed up family drama, but it's a family drama on its own merits.
Right. It is, the Cenobites are interrupting a love triangle. Well, and Frank's out of his mind.
Yeah, that's true.
But Frank is a traveler, right? He is what Rory's not. There's the opposite. There's in the movie, it's Larry, but they're brothers, right? Mm-hmm. But you have this, what's almost like the dad from Rick and Morty. Yeah, where the mother go shut up, whatever. Yeah.
Well, even Rick and Morty last season had a great episode about the Hellraiser Cenobites too.
But the villains in the story are not the Cenobites. Mm-hmm. It is Frank and Julia.
Yep.
And Julia, I don't know if you call it love, but it's like this unabated infatuation with Frank, where Frank will say, go walk off a bridge, he'll do it. Yeah.
Well, and it's similar to, I can't remember what movie we were talking about. We talked about this on a previous episode where it's all about characters wanting what they can't have, being unhappy with what they do. It seems like Julia has a nice marriage. She has a good family.
They talk about like, in a movie.
Yeah.
You're back home.
Things are pretty good. Like, maybe not perfect, but they're good. They're serviceable at the very least. But she's looking for what she can't have. Ever since she got married to Larry, before they were even together, she breaks her vow. So it's a question of, she wants what she can't have. She and Frank are the true villains of the story. And yeah, you're right. The Cenobites really aren't. They're the style to it. And in fact, when Barker was outlining a second, third, fourth movies, he was thinking about franchise potential. And he said after 2, Julia should be the main villain, not the Cenobites.
Right.
And so that's why you see the Cenobite characters take a very different role in that follow-up film, is because he always saw Julia as the villain. And the only reason it didn't continue was because she didn't come back for the 3rd movie.
Right. And so you have the Cenobites who are not actually all that bad people, but they want you to obey the rules of their parameters, right?
Yeah.
You open the box. Hey, you invited us here.
Yeah. You unlocked us.
You unlocked us, right. And so you have this, I didn't know better. Well, hey, that's the rules, right? So you have an exchange. I like the theater. Clive Barker, before he did this, did actually direct some theater.
Yep.
So he knows a little bit the theatrics. But, when the lights, the backlights are, when they come in and all that stuff. But understand, I don't think this movie works until you have great sound and music. I think that is the key.
Yeah,
sound
I don't
and
hear
music.
people talk about the score very much, but it's a damn good score. It is a foreboding sense of dread that pervades the whole film. And it also seems to have a hint of tragedy in the score, too, where it's like, from the beginning of this tale, Gothic is definitely an inspiration, and also we're not going to go to a happy place, and our characters will not the ones who walk out will not walk out in the same way in a better place.
So I counted on IMDb, there's 40 people on credit for sound. So I think Clive knows a little bit better. He knows that movies, sound is very important for movies. This has the sound right beginning with the bells, the chimes, and the chains moving, movies and everything, and the theatrics, and not to mention the movie. The sound is the score is so foreboding that anything can happen is so foreboding, because that scene when she sees Frank come out from the rain. That's Days of Our Lives, for gosh sake. That is so soapy.
Oh, yeah.
It is so soapy. It's like, hey, well, let me in from the rain. It's like, that's from Days of Our Lives. But the music and the tone and temperament, you get away with it.
Yeah.
The sound it steers away from that soap opera scene, yeah.
But I think that's also, Clive Barker made a smart choice in choosing the Hellbound Heart to adapt. He kind of had an option. Which one would I want to adapt? He chose the Hellbound Heart because he knew it was probably going to be one of the easier adaptations.
At one place,
all set in pretty much one location of that house. I mean, sure, you get a couple other things, but the house is mostly it. Minimal characters. There's really 4 mainline speaking roles. There's a couple other like randoms throughout, but nothing that you have to worry too much. Yeah. And fun fact, the movers, almost Doug Bradley cast as one of the movers instead of the Hell Priest.
That would actually be interesting.
He wasn't sure that he wanted to do a role of makeup because he wanted himself to be recognizable on film. But thankfully, he chose the Hell Priest, and we're all better for it. But yeah, minimal locations and characters make for an easier adaptation, which is maybe why he excelled in this so much better than Stephen King did with his first feature as a director, Maximum Overdrive, which was a very effects-heavy, very stunts-heavy movie.
And it was supposed to be tongue-in-cheek, but it was beyond tongue-in-cheek. They're like, oh my God, you did it that way. Before we go into a kind of a review, I just want to mention cinematographer is Robert Vernon. He would actually go on to do, which is Hellraiser in space, Event Horizon.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He did Rollerball. We should actually critique Rollerball. But Clive would use him again for Nightbreed and Hellraiser 2. But also, check out, it's kind of under the radar, and it should be under the radar. Fly 2 is actually pretty good.
Fly 2 is actually, the problem with Fly 2 is that it comes after Fly 1.
Right,
That's the biggest problem with it as a movie.
There's nothing wrong with Ghostbusters 2, but it's not Ghostbusters, right? That's what happens.
We're going to fight soon about that, but yeah.
What? Right, it's young kids, right? So let's give it the honest review, because you're not afraid to go a little picky on a horror movie.
Oh, yeah.
So
my honest review?
Yeah, honest review.
Ooh, get ready for this, man. I freaking love this movie. There's little bits and pieces, I think, that don't work, but I really think most of this movie hits it out of the park. And even so, like, the things that bothered me when I was younger are things that bother me less now. I was a little bit unhappy with the whole, like, the guy that comes and collects the box at the end of the film, and he turns into this like serpent dragon thing and flies
very
away.
80s graphics.
It's one of those areas where it's not explained, but it doesn't have to be. You know what I mean? Where it's like, we get it. He's here to collect the box and take it to the next place. You know, little things like that you can see. Like like the Frank thing is a little shot kind of like sumptuously soapy and such like that. There's little elements, nitpicks that you could have throughout the film, but Hellraiser is a movie that ages so very well, and part of it is that it's got great effects. He knew what we're going to show on screen has to look good, and it does.
Right. It's hard not to critique this movie for what happened, what comes after that, because you get from what Hellbound, Hellraiser 2, which came out almost immediately. I think they started production immediately right after.
Yeah, I mean, they would have had to keep all those people on set.
Because I think it's in your mind when you talk about this movie, you're still thinking Hellraiser 2 as well. It's hard to critique it because it's so shocking that people get this bad movie. But people who love scary movies understand that this is where in the 80s it needed to go. You had a lot of campy stuff. It was getting kind of ridiculous. It's still kind of ridiculous. But this was the one you talked about in school. Like, I'm going to kind of stay away from that one.
Yeah.
This might get to your core about upsetting. Yeah.
If you compare like lead villains, because I mean, Hellpriest Pinhead became a lead villain. He wasn't intended to be so.
No, it says
he's become
lead
iconic
Cenobite,
for that.
right?
Yeah. If you compare him to say like Jason or Freddy or Chucky, say what you will about the sequels, but those characters, those ones always got a little bit sillier and campier as they went along.
But the character
Pinhead
never
ever got away from being disturbing, and he's always the best part of every one of those sequels, including some of the terrible sequels. Pinhead works in every single one of them because they never treat him lesser than the complete embodiment of horror.
Yeah, and it's always, we're going to go back to kind of my criticism. The overall horror is he's letting you hang yourself.
Yeah.
You're guilty. I'm not doing anything. He's not forcing you to do anything. But this is what you want, I'll give it to you.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and he found it weird. Didn't he get like love letters? It's like, and I think initially Doug was writing, have you seen the movie?
Yeah. I've met Doug Bradley and Ashley
this is
Lawrence,
great.
I met them both at Crypticon. They signed this for me. Gosh, they're such great human beings. Doug,
it's really weird because he's the most nicest, pleasant person.
I like when you meet someone who's got a film role and they're willing to have a conversation with you afterwards. And we talked about things like, he talked about the rap party for Hellraiser. He didn't get in the door immediately because they didn't recognize him because he was too nice. He was too nice and friendly, and he had his nice voice, and he wasn't doing anything weird. And he wasn't wearing the makeup, and they had to actually convince him, I'm in the movie, but he didn't have a character name either. So it was kind of like, who am I? I'm the guy, the
guy, right?
And also I had discovered through either a couple interviews or maybe my discussion with him that he only became the face of the movie in that way because the Chatterer and Butterball Cenobites were supposed to have an equal number of dialogue pieces as him, but because of the makeup effects on their mouth, they couldn't get the words out.
Right.
So their dialogue was shuffled to the female Cenobite and him. So they just got a lot more to do in the movie, and it kind of elevated their presence. So it's kind of like accidentally becoming the face of the entire franchise.
Not to mention, I think he's wearing black contacts that almost made him blind. So
he's not tripped
moving
over a lot of stuff.
He's not going to move very much.
Yeah.
But I think in the book, if you don't want to explain, and Pinhead's supposed to be androgynous. He's supposed to have feminine features. And if you watch the movie, he's wearing a skirt.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's almost like he's supposed to have both gender parts. He's supposed to be intergendered.
In the book, he's described more androgynous, I would say slightly leaning towards female.
Right.
But Doug Bradley was cast in the role. Right. So that's what always boggles my mind when people who are against Jamie Clayton playing Pinhead in the reboot. And I love Jamie Clayton, so I'm like, yes, this is great. But people saying like, Pinhead's supposed to be a guy. And I'm like, no. Pinhead's not really supposed to be anything. Right. Pinhead is a monster.
It's supposed to be mixed genders. You're like, you don't even know if it's a female or male, right?
Yeah.
It's supposed to look very feminine, but what's coming out is very like threatening and dark. Yeah.
And of the people that have taken on the persona through like all the expanded world, all the comic books and stuff, Kirsty Cotton was the lead Cenobite during the comic books. Julia was. Harry D'Amour actually in the comic books became the lead Cenobite for a while.
Comic books,
there's always been someone different kind of under the persona, and it's like, I think this is a case of best actor gets the role, and you know what? Doug Bradley is really freaking good in all 8 of his appearances in this franchise.
And also, you get that actor's role when everybody talks about you and they're waiting for you, but all you have to do is say, "I'm going to tear your soul apart."
Yeah.
Whereas the fog machine is blowing fog in your face and the Venetian blinds behind you. Perfect setting.
I think it's a movie where everyone in the film
It's perfect.
accidentally understood the assignment. I don't think they knew what they were really doing, because it was such a unique vision. I don't think you'd know what movie you were getting to make out of this, but they all do it well. When Andrew Robinson, who we haven't mentioned it, I love Andrew Robinson in this role.
Yeah, he played bad guy. He played in the...
He was in Dirty Harry.
Dirty Harry's the
he's
bad
one
guy.
of the only people to be killed by in Hellraiser, and also by Chucky. So there you go. When he gets to mouth Jesus wept instead of what was just going to be F-U was the line. And it's like, he's like, what if I do Jesus wept instead? Jesus wept is one of the most haunting lines ever. And it was the equivalent to I love you, I know, from Empire. Like it just...
But it seals what I'm trying to... My analysis is very much Catholic gore. Like, sorry for my sins.
Yeah.
Which you don't really are sorry, you just got caught.
Oh, actually, yeah. Which is exactly how prisoners are when they get brought back to jail.
I found after all of this, I finally found Jesus.
Yeah.
About
Always
ready
people
to,
on their deathbed that feel bad for what they did because they're about to die. So,
but also about the question of in the movie is dualities. Like, who am I? Even the Cenobites. Who am I? Where do I come? Then we find out Hellraiser 2 what their tortured past. But also, Kirsty's the Crucible. I don't think she's like a final girl, but she has to go through it as well.
I guess she is the final girl, like just quite literally.
Right. Yeah. But she uses her smarts to get out of it.
Yeah, Kirsty is one of those characters done so well in this film, done so well in Hellbound, and then completely misused, I think, in Hellraiser 6 when she pops back up again. It's that proof of like whenever you have Clive Barker attached to this world, things seem to go well. Because I'm on the side of I think the first 4 are enjoyable.
Yeah,
I think even the one in space,
three when
I
he
think
sealed
is
it up in the artifact, whatever, in the bad guy club. It still harkened back to Clive's inspiration where he got it, the nightclub kind of thing. Yeah,
like 1 through 4, Barker was a little bit involved, a little bit less every time, but he was still involved in 1 through 4. 5 through 8 are all other screenplays that they just added Pinhead to, and 9 and 10 where we have to make these so we don't lose the rights. So I think the first 4 are pretty worth
home
checking.
video kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, for a while.
So. We're definitely looking forward to the new one.
Yeah. Let us know if it's already out by the time you're seeing this video. So please let us know your thoughts on Hellraiser 2022, Hellraiser 1987.
Yeah. I recommend, if you really like the movie, like I did and seen it many times, read the book because it's very close.
Especially if you have problems with non-Doug Bradley playing the role. Read the book. It's 150 pages. It's really cool.
Yeah, he has a throne. Pinhead has a throne in the book.
Yeah. That's what we need in the next one.
Yeah.
So, have you guys seen Hellraiser?
Oh my God, you should.
Yeah.
You should use it as a barometer. Like, you tell your friends, have you seen this movie?
Yeah. Get the 2 ends, the 87 and 2022.
Yeah. See this movie, then go see Itchy the Killer.
Yeah. That's your barometer.
Right.
Throw in some Monster Squad.
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts down below on this film. And maybe if you personally don't think the first Hellraiser is the best in the series, let us know which one you think is. I'd love to have that conversation with you guys.
I think it's one of those, like we always talked about, the first one is always the great one, but 2, you don't really need all this world building. You
2 swings for the fences.
You just go, man. You just take a big bat up to the plate and try to...
Yeah, absolutely. So, make sure to do that. And then please like and subscribe. They're 2 free things that you can do.
Yes, please do.
They support the channel, and you never miss new episodes. And also, as Nick mentioned before, check out that Patreon link down below. We'd love to have you guys join the team. Thank you guys for joining us. And until next time, you can find all my film reviews, including my 31 Days of Horror, continuing for year number 9 over at goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts, and we're still... Clive, come back to direct it, man.
Yeah, make another one.